Hi, welcome to another video on this old Dell OptiPlex 755 office computer. On the channel a few months back, I performed some essential upgrades on this PC, which included replacing the old hard drive with an SSD, doubling the RAM from 4GB to 8GB, slotting in a low power graphics card, and upgrading the processor from a dual core to a quad core, this being an Intel Core 2 Quad Q6600 from 2007. From my understanding, this is one of the best officially supported processors for this old late 2000s office computer, and has surprisingly decent performance to offer considering the age. It's not ideal for modern gaming of course, but it's good enough to allow basic web browsing and multitasking on Windows 10, along with some lightweight or retro gaming. It turns out this processor can also handle overclocking very well. Its stock speed is 2.4 GHz, but from my understanding, people have often managed to overclock this processor well over 3 GHz, which allows for a noticeable speed up in performance. Now, obviously the BIOS in this old OptiPlex is not going to allow overclocking of any variety, so what I just said is irrelevant. Or not. Turns out people have also managed to overclock this processor using tape. Yes, this is a real method that works. Let's take a close look at the processor, and I'll explain what I'm on about. So, according to methods seen online, these two pins here need to be covered with bits of electrical tape. The one pin directly above the notch in the bottom right corner, and this one here, 2 pins up from the first. What is the point of this? Well, blocking off these pins is meant to increase the front side bus from its stock 1066 MHz up to 1333 MHz, resulting in an overall clock speed increase from 2.4 GHz to 3 GHz, which would provide a 25% uplift in performance, in theory. I used pieces of Kapton tape for this method, since it's designed to be used for electrical components. It took lots of time and patience to cut the tape to the right size, but eventually both necessary pins were covered. The tape was hanging off the side of the processor a little bit, but not enough to obstruct anything. Let's get the processor inserted into the OptiPlex and try powering it on. Well, not before applying thermal paste first and inserting the cooler on top, otherwise the processor would overheat and melt. And here's the OptiPlex 755 on the floor, fully assembled and connected to my TV, ready to be tested. I plugged it in, but after trying to switch it on, nothing happened, even after waiting for a minute. I force powered it off and then suddenly it restarted, followed by a signal on screen this time. The BIOS was recognising the processor, but it looked like the speed hadn't changed. The stock speeds were still being displayed. It should be saying 3 GHz, not 2.4. But what if we boot into Windows and check for more detailed info about the processor? There we go, now we see the tape mod in effect in CPU-Z here. The processor was running with a 333 MHz frontside bus, which is quad pumped to 1333 MHz, with a 9x multiplier, which brings the clock speed to 3 GHz, or near enough anyway. With this mod, the processor also scores 1019 points on multi-thread performance, and 254 on single-thread performance. I believe that's a better reading compared to what it used to score when running at stock speed, but we'll compare the scores later. The temperatures shown in HWMonitor were alarming though, nearly 80 degrees on the processor. I did leave the computer idle for a little while, but even then it was still running at about 55 to 60 degrees. It didn't help that it was a very hot day at the time of recording this. Maybe on a cooler day it would idle closer to the low 50s, maybe even high 40s. The good thing is everything seems stable so far, so I may as well get on with showing the benchmarks. At the end, I'll compare the results with what the PC previously scored without the tape mod in place. So here's 3D Mark 11, quite an old DirectX 11 test, but appropriate for this system. In regards to graphics, this test ran basically the same as before, since the Nvidia Quadro card in this system isn't really powerful, so it's hard to see anything above 30 FPS here since it's being pushed quite hard. When the test completed though, it revealed a slightly better score of 3893 compared to what the system used to score, which was 3706. The CPU, or physics, score was also improved, going from 2945 to 3444 points, suggesting the tape mod is making a slight difference so far. Moving on to a bit of a newer test, Firestrike from 2013 using DirectX 11. Now, this was basically the same as what we just saw a second ago. The graphics were running the same as before, with a poor frame rate. The physics test was noticeably better though. It used to run at about 10 FPS, but was now reaching 15 FPS. Not great, but 50% better than how it did previously. because the physics test relies on processor performance more than anything. The final result was a higher score of 3,076 points. While it's only 70 points higher than what the PC originally scored, the processor score had increased by 1,000 points, going from 3,652 to 4,647. Quite a noticeable difference, and was reflected by what we just saw during the physics test. Moving on to Time Spy from 2016, using DirectX 12. This performed pretty much the same with single-digit frame rates throughout, since the graphics card's simply too underpowered to handle it at this point. Nothing else to say, so I'll skip to the result. 984 points. That is marginally better than what it previously scored, but only because the CPU score was higher this time round, going from 1,121 to 1,364. And finally, Steel Nomad from 2024. Well, this is pushing things too hard. No point showing this, but I'll compare numbers at the end. Now, we'll move on to some gameplay tests. I'll be using the same game titles that I tested in a previous video a few months back. Each game is using the same graphics settings with VSync turned off, unless stated otherwise. Let's begin. Now, starting off here, something simple, Sumotori Dreams from 2007, using the DirectX 9 API. This is the Steam version, running in HD 1080p resolution. Here we saw no real difference whatsoever. The only slight improvement was the fact that the 1% lows were improved by one single frame, going from 48 to 49, and the average frame rate stayed the same. So yeah, simple titles like this will be just fine, it goes without saying. So let's move on to something a bit more intensive. This is Colin McRae Dirt, using the high preset for the graphics and running in 1080p HD resolution. Now it turns out this game has issues addressing more than 4 processor cores, so it could have been sorted with a patch, but I didn't actually know about it at the time of recording this, and I only found this out while I was working on this video. So unfortunately, this is kind of just how the game works by default on a processor like this. I mean, we did see an improvement at least. It went from 52 FPS to 61, and the 1% lows went from 27 to 38, so pretty much a 10 FPS improvement all round. If I did know about the CPU patch before recording this, then I could have applied that, and it may have actually helped the 1% lows further, but never mind. I mean, it still ran alright, and with VSync enabled it would probably stabilise things a bit further anyway, or maybe turning down some graphics settings might help a little bit, although it's not really graphics card bound. I mean, saying that, I'm seeing it 100% right now. Maybe I could have done with turning the graphics down a bit, but I mean, nevertheless, this was still playable, and well, it was made more playable now with the tape mod in place, so that's good to see. Now moving on to Portal 2 from 2011, using the DirectX 9 API. So this was using the highest graphics settings, running in 1080p resolution once again, and well, the performance was literally identical. Yeah, it didn't change at all, and I think it's because the graphics card was becoming the bottleneck before the processor. That's why we saw pretty much the same performance, and the game ran totally fine without the tape mod in place anyway, so no real improvements here at all, but at least it's not got worse, I suppose. So let's move on to I Am Bread from 2014. So this is a Unity title using the DirectX 9 API once again. Highest graphics settings and 1080p resolution as well. So despite a minimal change in performance, the game still felt a bit smoother, to be fair. It would try to reach 60 FPS sometimes, but it couldn't quite get there. This was in standard story mode anyway. If I skip to a more intensive scenario, like in the Rampage mode here, in the garage, it did actually perform a lot better with the tape mod in place, but you would still get pretty bad 1% lows. Stutters were very common when lots of objects were breaking at once, but the frame rate, yeah, it didn't suffer as bad overall. I don't know why the lawnmower went flying, but overall, yeah, this game definitely saw a bit of an improvement. But yeah, you might want to stick more to the standard story modes, maybe stay away from the Rampage mode just because of all the objects everywhere, and please never go near the football. Anyway, let's move on to a much newer Unity title. This is Easy Red 2 from 2020 using the DirectX 11 API this time round. So yeah, this was using the normal graphics preset and 1080p HD resolution. The game used to struggle hitting 60 FPS, but now it can actually just about do it, although the 1% lows are still leaving a bit to be desired. They're not terrible, but could be smoother. but I mean, still, the tape mod has definitely helped a bit here. Again, this game, as always in my videos, it shows decent optimization with pretty nice looking graphics despite running on an almost 20-year-old processor with tape. I will also mention, actually, I tried running the game with the Vulkan API just to see if that would make any difference, but no, it ran slightly worse, so not worth showing. Now moving on to BeamNG. This is the Steam beta from 2021 that I usually run on this system. This one's also using the DirectX 11 API, and on the cliff map here, the game is running in 1600 by 900 resolution with the normal graphics preset. Now, this game seems to rely heavily on a decent processor, which makes sense, I suppose, because of the way it works, and it actually saw substantial improvements in the frame rate with the tape mod applied. 60 FPS was now no problem on lightweight maps like the cliff here, even with lots of crashing and smashing going on. So yeah, it went from 56 FPS up to 71 on average, and the 1% lows they went from 39 FPS and nearly to 60. So yeah, nearly a fully smooth 60 FPS, and I suppose having VSync enabled would at least stabilise the frame rates a bit more, I think. Moving on to a more intensive map like the Jungle Rock Island here, this one saw a huge improvement in the frame rate, nearly reaching 60 FPS here as well. I did have to bring the graphics down to 720p medium, like I did before applying the tape mod. But yeah, it used to do 30 FPS on average with pretty bad 1% lows. But yeah, now it was virtually 60 FPS, although if you touched the foliage, like if you tried to drive through hedges and bushes and trees and stuff, for some reason the frame rate would go down to like the 20s. Not for very long, but it would happen. Yeah. Again, this game is quite processor bound. It does rely on a pretty good processor, but the tape mod has definitely made probably the best improvement so far demonstrated in this game. So yeah, that's good to see. I will actually say as well, the game would take minutes to load every time you tried to load a different map. Again, because of the processor being pretty old at this point. But yeah, honestly, biggest difference seen so far. Very impressive. Considering all we did was just put a bit of tape on the processor. And now an Unreal Engine 4 title. This is Spyro Reignited Trilogy from 2018. This one's using the DirectX 11 API again, and the 1600 by 900 resolution with medium graphics preset. So this game, it ran okay before. The 1% lows were not the greatest, but this time round with the tape mod applied, it was almost hitting 60 FPS, but couldn't quite do it, sadly. You would still get random stutters occasionally as well. Nothing too distracting. This game is definitely quite processor bound. It makes sense that we're not seeing the smoothest performance, I suppose. But I mean, again, it wasn't horrible, it was playable. Now moving on to BallisticNG. Now this game is another Unity title that still receives updates in 2026 and is using the DirectX 11 API. It was being run in 1080p with high settings. The improvement here is marginal, really. The game, it really wants a faster processor, I think. Toning down the graphics settings would help a little bit, but it wasn't really enough to get a fully solid 60 FPS. So that's why I kind of just showed the game running with high settings here, because even changing it to low doesn't really make much of a difference. You're better off to sticking to races with 4 opponents, or maybe just single player modes like time trial or survival where you're on your own. Average frame rate went from 36 to 39, and 1% lows went from 21 to 25, so it's almost margin of error territory, really. Still an improvement, but quite a marginal one, really. You've probably seen previously that Crysis does indeed run on this computer, but does it run any better this time round? Well, using the same graphics settings, the high preset with the 1080p resolution, it averaged 44 FPS this time round compared to 45, but the 1% lows were a bit better, going from 15 to 23 FPS. So 1% lows were improved, but still not great really, and the average frame rate didn't really change. It wasn't really unplayable, but there were ways to improve this, so I ran the same level again with a low resolution of 1600 by 900 and using the medium preset to reduce the load on the graphics card. And in the end, it did actually help increase the average a bit. It was closer to 60 FPS, although not quite. It was 55. The 1% lows were about the same, 24 FPS. Overall, it can run Crysis, and slightly better this time round. It's not the greatest performance, but I mean, I'd say it's passable. And finally, as I like to show, just a little bit of PSP emulation on these old PCs. Yeah, this is the PPSSPP Emulator with WipEout Pure. I was using the forced 60 FPS cheat just to maximise the performance in this game, and the average was around the same, like 60 FPS, but the 1% lows had improved quite a lot. I will also say you need to have VSync on when you're playing games in this emulator, or else the screen is literal jelly. I also don't know why the autopilot did that. I've just seen that in the footage there. But anyway, yeah, 1% lows improved considerably. I suppose it kind of depends on the scenario. Like if you're in like a more intense race with more weapons firing, then yeah, you'd see more microstars. But overall, I think it did. The tape mod did improve the performance in PSP emulation a little bit. Overall, after running these benchmarks with the tape modded Q6600 processor, performance has increased across the board, it's safe to say. Comparing the scores seen in CPU-Z, performance has increased by nearly 25%, and it achieved just over 1000 points in multi-thread performance, making it about as fast as the Q9550 processor in my LGA775 build in terms of both single and multi-thread performance. I've also put my main PC at the top of the graph here just for reference. These older PCs aren't that far off, all things considered. I guess my main PC isn't really that modern either. The 7th gen Core i5 is a decade old now, which feels a bit weird. But switching over to 3D Mark results, they were admittedly bottlenecked by the graphics card in this OptiPlex, but CPU scores were better by around 20 to 25% across all tests once again. Of course, it's not like this office PC has been transformed into a modern gaming machine, which is reflected in the Steel Nomad test. The hardware is just too old for most new stuff. But even then, during gaming testing, each title showed a noticeable improvement in some way, BeamNG being one of the best examples, running nearly twice as fast as it did before overclocking the processor with tape. Most other games, whether they were well-optimized indie titles or older releases, showed some improvements to both average and 1% lows in terms of frame rate. And briefly going over power usage, I might as well. It's inevitable that the processor will be sipping more power since it's operating at a quicker speed. Previously, the PC used about 90 watts when doing basic web browsing or watching HD video on YouTube, and under full load, it consumed up to 175 watts. But with the tape mod in place, the PC now consumes slightly more power when watching HD video, and under full load, just shy of 200 watts. So definitely getting closer to the 275 watt limit on the power supply, which is something to keep an eye on just for safety. To conclude this video, I'd say this tape mod is certainly worth it for old late 2000s systems like these. It's not going to fully transform the system into something incredible, but it does help give things a nice boost in performance, whether you're doing some modernish gaming or just some basic everyday tasks. Despite the OptiPlex being nearly 20 years old, it's still a nice system to mess around with that I feel has aged alright, as long as it's had all the necessary upgrades such as an SSD and a low-profile graphics card at the very least. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Feel free to let me know what you thought, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.